Hello.
Hello. Mute. Hello, is anybody speaking?
Nope. We're all
This
supposed
is
to be
Steve.
muted as when the meeting gets started. So,
I just want to know if I could hear. Thank you.
oh, well, that's fine. That's always good to check.
You just.
Well, good evening, everyone. We're all being very good and being muted. My name is Buzz, and I'm the membership chairman of the PRNC. And tonight I'm just functioning as the Zoom master. Who we are missing so far is Rod and Charmaine, and there's probably a couple that I haven't mentioned because I haven't thought of them. But just wanted to let you know we're all trying to be patient.
Hey, everybody, it's Philip. Rod is just having a little trouble logging in, so he is expecting to be here any moment. And consequently, it's possible that Charmaine, who is in another state, is having the same problem. So if everyone will kindly just give them a moment, we could probably get started when he logs in.
For those who are Warriors fans, the score is currently 66-60. 68-60, I take that back, with 39 seconds left in the second quarter before the half, with the Warriors ahead.
Wow.
I thought I'd break the deafening silence here. We wait for Rod is technically challenged at the moment, so hopefully he'll be able to connect soon.
Thank you, Lisa. There's a note in the chat for you, Lisa.
Yeah, I just saw that.
Yay, here comes Rod. Here comes Rod. Oh. Well, Rod was logging in and then all of a sudden Rod disappeared.
He's on there. He's just, his video's not active.
Yeah, well, he disappeared from my screen.
Okay, we're here. There we are.
Yay,
I didn't even see.
welcome.
Thank you. And can you hear us?
Yep,
Okay,
Okay,
I'm sorry I'm late. I have too many firewalls.
everyone is muted and we have 32 people here.
okay,
How many people?
32.
32. Okay, well, welcome to this special meeting just for this project, for the Urban Republic PG&E Development Project. I'm Rod Satry. I'm chair of the Point Richmond Neighborhood Council Land Use Design Review Committee, and I'll be chairing the meeting. And what I've set out earlier to Kelly was I'm going to give you 30 minutes uninterrupted to make a presentation. Then we're going to do 30 minutes of Land Use Design Review Committee members. That'll bring us into the first hour. And then from there, it'll open it up to the public. I'd like to be done by 8, but if we have this available until 9. And the other thing is 4 questions for the general audience and for all of us if we can. Try to limit ourselves to 5 minutes per person, so we can get as many people in as possible to talk about things. I'm going to keep track of who speaks, and I don't want any individual other than our presenter from Urban Republic to usurp their time and essentially take over the meeting, because there's a lot to review. There's a lot of comments to be made, and you've already understood this is being recorded, correct? Everyone, you can raise your hand if you know that.
It is being recorded.
Okay,
Do you have
so-
your notes? Stuff you did?
no. And Charmaine, did you make it?
She's in Florida.
She's in Florida.
Charmaine is out at dinner in Florida with relatives and she's going to join as soon as she can.
Okay,
You have your notes? Get your notes.
yeah. No, okay, so first thing we do is let's open this up to our presenter from Urban Development. And you can put your share and put your screens on. Share so that people can follow you.
Okay, great. Yes, I have a presentation I will share. Nice to see all of you. I know we were here a couple months ago, so we're happy to come back and answer any remaining questions that there are. And we have some updates to share with you as well. Let's see. There we go. So hopefully everyone can see my screen. Good evening. My name is Melissa Durkin. I am the Senior Vice President of Development with Republic Urban Properties. We are the project applicant for the site. I am joined with Kelly O'Reilly as well, and we're both here to have a great presentation and then answer any questions that you may have. So a little bit about Republic. We are based out of San Jose, California. We specialize in apartments and mixed-use projects that have since branched out into projects that include retail, office, even hotels. We're in San Jose, but also now spreading our reach throughout the Bay Area and are excited for the opportunity to develop in Richmond. We've won several awards for being a top Bay Area developer and are also proud of all of our philanthropy that we've done in many of the communities that we have projects in. So the subject site, it's 6 acres. I'm sure you all are very familiar with the site. It's currently owned by PG&E and was used as a gas tank holder facility for many years. And then it was later dismantled, and then they put the property up for sale, and Republic was selected to purchase the property. The site already is zoned and has a general plan designation that allows for medium density residential. This is consistent with our development proposal in that it, does intend for multifamily housing, like townhouses that are about 3 stories in height. The proposal includes 94 units and a recreation facility. So it's 20 buildings in total. 19 of those are residential units. Our density is 15.6 dwelling units per acre, which does fit within the density criteria in the general plan and the zoning. Our building heights are 3 stories at about 38 feet in height. There's a mix of 3 and 2 bedroom units. What's changed since our previous presentation is that we are no longer pursuing a planned area rezoning. We are using the state density bonus law. And under this means that 10% of the units will be affordable. We have decided to move forward as a for sale product, which means that the 10% affordable units will be for moderate income households. And any deviations to the zoning, we are using waivers. So that is how we are allowed to proceed with 38 feet in height, for example, when the zoning only allows for 35 feet. But we are not pursuing any additional density that is allowed with this density bonus law. These are some of the previous photo simulations that we've prepared to basically demonstrate that we think that the project sort of conforms and really blends in with the existing neighborhood and existing neighboring residential projects. This is another view taken from the trail that is north of the project site. We've been working on this project for over a year now, really closely with the design review board. We've had a study session on September 21st. So we've really worked closely trying to incorporate as much as we could to address any concerns or comments from the DRB as well as the community. So you can see we've sort of started off with this very linear project, and it sort of evolved into this more organic, natural design with curved streets and angled buildings. We've really paid attention to locating trees along the main entry drive, adding benches along areas for people to take in views. We really think this project really blends in naturally and would be really cohesive with the community. Parking requirements per city code are a total of 182 spaces. We are providing 212 parking spaces, and that is included in the 2-car garages that come with each unit, as well as parking that's located along the main entry road in front of the clubhouse and at the end of the private drives. We've looked as much as we can to try to include more parking. We were able to squeeze 2 more parking spaces in, which we've highlighted in yellow. But I think we really maximized as many stalls as we could get on site. We do meet the parking requirement, but we're also pursuing some potential off-site parking opportunities across the street, and have had communications with the property owners there. The architecture has also evolved over the past year or so. You can see we kind of started off with maybe a more sort of seaside modern design with kind of bright whites and bright blues. We looked at sort of modifying the color palette to be more natural colors, some browns and taupe colors. We also sort of lowered the roof lines a little bit, and that helped reduce the building heights as well. What we have done is we've introduced a little bit more color than the last version that the design review board has seen. And that's really due to the fact that we believe buyers of these units want color. That's what all of the for sale developers we've discussed this project with have told us, that they want to see color. So I think we've done it in a very sort of mindful manner. We've kept some of the earth tones, the browns and taupes, and introduced some more muted colors, the blues and greens that are kind of reflective of the Bay environment. And then these are just some of the examples of the different building types. So really wanting to also incorporate some variety in the buildings as well, so they don't all look the same. We also have the bronze windows that was recommended by the design review board. We've incorporated the metal awnings that you can see in this picture to really enhance the front entries. Glass railings on the porches. The units that face Brickyard Cove Road, they will have an enlarged front porch area. That was a recommendation as well that we think is really great. So these units have a larger front area to really enjoy the views of the bay. Building G was brought up at the study session as well in its proximity to the property line. The original setback was 10 feet, so we've revised that unit. So now there's a 22-foot setback in that location. So you can see in the bottom left-hand corner what that view would look like from one of the units at Brickyard Landing. And then this is just a view of the recreation building. So this also incorporates some of the natural light browns and taupe colors with some muted blues. We have the shingles that the design review board really liked, but have also included a little bit of horizontal siding to match the rest of the architecture. And the soil import. So I know this has been a contentious item. It is important for several reasons. It helps to restore the natural hillside slope while adding stability. It creates more usable area for the development. Without soil import, by keeping the existing site grading, we would lose approximately 6 to 8 buildings. And so that just would not be financially feasible for us. We think it matches the character of the adjacent residential projects, and it provides a buffer between the new residences and residual subsurface contamination that was left over from prior PG&E uses. And then that has been circulated to the Regional Water Quality Control Board for approval. When I was discussing soil import with my team, they reminded me that our original proposal, before we shared it with the city, included 120,000 cubic yards of soil import. Our proposal then went to 88,000 cubic yards, and I think that was presented at our last meeting. We did go back, our engineer, and he found a way that we could reduce the import more. So we've lowered the site by approximately 3 feet. And that resulted in about 23% fill from the previous plan that was presented. So now we're at approximately 68,000 cubic yards of import. The landscape plan includes adaptive and climate appropriate plants, really focusing on low water use plants, trees and plants that are really native to the area and along the Bay Trail. It was important for the design review board that the landscaping appear more organic and natural and less manicured. So we've gone back and sort of revisited what the landscape palette would look like, as well as the planting. And then we've also replaced some of the perimeter trees. We wanted to ensure that those trees along the outside of the project would not grow any taller than the buildings and impact views anymore. So that is something we've done, and our landscape team has revisited those trees and ensured me that they will not grow past the height of our buildings. Some of the common area amenities for the residents would include a fitness room and club room. There's a swimming pool with spa. There's gathering areas with seating, dining tables, fire pits, and game tables, as well as a tot lot with some natural play elements. There's this fun element at the top of our site that's actually an emergency vehicle access turnaround. We've managed to incorporate some seating in that area so you could take advantage of the views from that area. The design review board asked us to look at doing something that looked a little bit more natural. So you can see in the bottom images that retaining wall has been replaced with an architectural shotcrete wall. So it appears like a natural rock wall. We have to comply with the city's public art ordinance program. We do want to include as much art on site as possible, and with some of the remaining art in the surrounding community. We're looking to hire an art consultant that could help sort of coordinate some outreach with any interested community members to help select local artists and types of artwork for the area. The Bay Trail will be improved all across our project frontage to meet requirements and guidelines of their latest toolkit. So there's a 12-foot trail that will be constructed along with the required decomposed granite shoulders and a new landscape park strip. There's also a bench that's proposed and some interpretive signage that will have information on the history of the site that would be coordinated with the track. Construction is anticipated to last approximately 2 years. So say maybe 6 or so months of soil import and grading, and then another 16 or so months of vertical construction. There are city conditions of approval and mitigation measures that we must comply with that include doing a pavement conditions assessment of the road to ensure that there is no damage, and if there is, we would have to repair that. There's also items related to dust control. With all of the soil, we would have to be watering, I think it's twice a day, as well as preparing a construction traffic plan that outlines how we plan to mitigate noise, traffic, and dust. And it also outlines our hours of construction that are in conformance with the city's zoning code. So community benefits include new quality homes that help meet the city's housing requirements, 10% of which will be affordable. We're improving the Bay Trail. We're complying with the city's inclusionary housing ordinance. We're assisting with the Brickyard Cove road dedication. We're providing union carpenter jobs, public art, and we have a sustainable design that includes on-site stormwater treatment, solar panels, all electric appliances, and EV charge-ready parking. Next steps include DRB on our rescheduled date, unfortunately, of February 8th, followed by Planning Commission that would likely be in mid-March. And that concludes the presentation. So I will stop sharing. And I think Kelly and I are available to answer any questions.
Yeah.
Okay, who we have for our land use, we have, I saw that David was here. There you are. David's one of our members of the Land Use Design Review Committee.
I just thought.
Yeah.
Do that first.
Yeah, we're gonna do that first. David, you have any,
Do I have any comments or questions?
yes,
Yeah, so I mean, my primary concern is the 50 feet of fill. That, we with a waiver, the buildings are qualified for a 38-foot height. But that's kind of meaningless if you're putting it on top of 50 feet of fill. And, you know, I'm not a geologist, so I know that others have questions about the stability of the land. But I certainly have, you know, concerns regarding the amount of fill that's going to be required. I know that the neighbors who have been, who are residents of Seacliff were drastically impacted by the water line development and the amount of fill and the number of truckloads. You know, a rough estimate says that 68,000 or 63,000 cubic yards of fill represents 5,000 truckloads. I suppose more or less depending on how large a load, you know, but a standard dump truck is, I think, 16 to 20 yards. So we are talking an immense impact and reshaping of the land that seems out of proportion to what we're looking at. That, you know, I mean, I think there are a lot of admirable qualities in this project, but that seems to me an extremely serious one that has not been adequately addressed. And that's really my comments.
Okay, I'd like to pile up all the comments and then let the developer respond so that we, because there's going to be probably more of us saying similar things. Bonnie, would you like to say anything?
Well, one of the things that I think,
Bonnie's also on the committee.
yeah, one of the things that I think is necessary is to look at the real true issues of possible failure of these buildings, for the simple reason that you're setting them on a hill with a 50-foot pile of more dirt. And what we found and saw in your geotechnical report and what was shown, because one page was purposely left vacant, and from the staff report, is that there were over 35 different errors in that report and things that did not match. And more importantly, there's 14 houses in Seacliff. It's right beside you guys. And they all got roasted out of their beds at 3 o'clock in the morning because they had to evacuate their homes. This is the same
Why did
basic
they have to
hill.
evacuate?
They had to evacuate because of land movement and possible mudslides and taking out these houses. You're on the same hill. That should be warning enough that you are more precise and clear about what are the true and real problems associated with these kinds of buildings smushed on top of a bunch of extra dirt. Rod is more of the person that knows stuff like this, but from the report that we read, this isn't a good project. It is going to leave the city of Richmond perhaps holding the financial bag for taking care of the problems that this development might well develop.
Anything else?
Nope, not right now.
Okay, I'll put in my 2 cents. There is a practice guide and municipal code for the city of Richmond called the Hillside Ordinance and Hillside Development Ordinance, which has certain criteria for building on hills that are over 10% grade, and this definitely qualifies for it. Part of those rules are that you can only put in a 4-foot retaining wall, and at max you put 2 staggered retaining walls, maximizing up to 8 feet. And I'm seeing parts of your design that are 3 10-foot walls staggered, so you have a 30-foot vertical rise. And you can, obviously that picks up on this up to 50 vertical feet. But the the guidance from the hillside development ordinance is that if you see landslides or unstable ground, the best thing to do is build somewhere else or do something that doesn't put you at risk. One of the parts, I've looked at the geotechnical report with extreme interest. And as Bonnie was saying, there's a part called the slope stability information, and it was purposely left out of the report that was available to us as a public. And the city's report also had the same thing. So you have a section of the report and it says this page intentionally left blank, and there is no stability solutions document available, even though it had a title, it had a section. That's a little concerning. But even more concerning is the fact that your geotechnical engineer says, well, because of the fill, because of the compressive soils that you're allowing to put in this, both from import and what's there, you can anticipate having up to 9 inches of hydrocompression and 3/4 of an inch of rise. So we're almost at 10-inch change during the lifetime of this project. And I can tell you, if you have a house on a slope hill that has going to drop possibly 9 inches over time, and this has happened in other places, that's a concern. The other thing that the geotechnical said is you will have to anticipate that from time to time, you're going to have to fix the cracks in your sheetrock in your walls because of the settling of the buildings. And you're probably going to have to replace tiles on the floors because they're going to be breaking off and popping. Is that what this group is going to be proud of? A building that's going to be, you know, sliding, slipping, cracking, falling apart on a continuous basis? In Southern California, there was a fill project that actually they went up 100 feet in fill. And ultimately, because of this hydrocompression, which is the first warning by the geotechnical engineer, they actually closed down the site, destroyed the homes, and you know, went home with their tail between their legs. So the concern I have is this plan, by trying to get the heights the way they are, puts the project at risk, other than the fact that the geotechnical engineer essentially said, well, I told you this is what was going to happen. So you're going with the eyes wide open to a project that you can expect 9 vertical inches of compression, in other words, subsidence over, and it's over 10 to 30 years. And then you're going to have a continuous breaking of your wall sidings, your sheetrock repairs, your floor tiles are going to be popping because the houses are going to slip. And that's why you're doing post-tension foundations, because they'll hold together better than a pre-stressed concrete.
But they won't hold as
But
what they need.
But you can have a very stable little sled going down the hillside. That's my concern. The other one is there are some design issues where you're making it appear that your buildings are lower in the architect's conceptual, but we have information from people in the community that have provided it to us. I can bring that up later, but in this meeting tonight, that show that the housing you're building is not below the elevations of the existing homes, but actually higher. And so there will be light and views that are going to be impacted that aren't fully well represented in the architectural renderings that you provided. Do we have more people on land use? Jane, you're going to come back in for a minute? Take yourself off mute, Jane.
Jane, you're on mute.
Yes, I just had to find where the little
Okay.
widget was that you click. This seems to me to be, well, let me back up a second. I thought it was a terrible imposition on the community. Something built according to the basic zoning might have been reasonable, but all this added height and doubled and tripled retaining walls right in the face of the adjacent buildings in Brickyard. They won't affect me personally. because I'm on the top floor of the top building, but the people in the lower buildings next to you will, I would hate to be somebody in one of those end units who had light and air and then doesn't, because you've packed in all this height and then built 3-story buildings on top of it. I'd hoped when you sort of withdrew and went back to think, you were going to think in terms of being a tad more neighborly, and you really haven't.
Okay, do we have more people from land use available anywhere?
Yes, hi, Rod, this is
Hi,
Stephen
Stephen.
Parker. Hi, I'm also concerned about the land movement, and I guess one of the questions I have for the developer is, have they gotten any sorts of updates with regards to insurance for the construction of the project? And is there any information related to the future home buyers with regards to getting insurance?
Okay, do we have any more for the neighborhood land use?
Well, I think we should say when I look in-
Oh, go ahead.
The only last thing I would add as a member of land use is that what we see is a lack of transparency with this developer. They were going to go and just trying to plunk themselves in front of design review and get themselves passed without really talking to us as a community. That just is not going to be acceptable. And it leads us to believe that what they tell and what they promise may well not be the truth. And I would ask and suggest that they become much more transparent, much more honest, and much more clear about what the true level of problems that might develop with this. I mean, if these are all going to be rental units at some point, it sounds like they're going to be falling apart and it's going to become blight. That's all I have.
Let me see if I can get that. Okay, I'm gonna open it up generally to the few hands that are up. And David Allen Smith, you had your hand and you dropped it. Did you want to raise your hand back? Because I saw you had your hand up first. Okay, that's your comment? Okay. Philip? Philip, you're on board.
Thank you, Rod. I just wanted to make a couple of comments. One of which was that I did have a conversation after the last meeting with the developer. I am not on the LUDRC, but we had a glitchy meeting due to technical difficulties and the fact that people weren't muted. So I went ahead and had that conversation because I felt an apology was necessary for how awkwardly our technology went. Obviously a little better this time. But one of the things that struck me was that in the end, the developer said, well, Philip, in the end, nobody has to buy these units. No one's being forced to buy these. And I was left with the thought, nor is the developer being forced to build them. And they are certainly not being forced to build them exactly the way they want. So we want a good project. We will have a good project. That area is going to be developed, but it doesn't have to be developed exactly this way. I cannot tell you how shockingly insulting and disingenuous it seems to say we're only going to build 38 feet high. Oh, by the way, on a 50-foot plinth. We can do math. Okay, even in Northern California, we can do math. The other thing I want to repeat, and I do apologize because Rod did a good job at outlining this, but I want to repeat these words. There was a geotechnical report, Appendix D, slope stability analysis. And that page, that analysis said this page is intentionally left blank. So given the fact that our neighbor, so simultaneously, while the hill is sliding into our neighbors' homes, these folks won't tell us what their own survey said. And of course, their survey would have been by somebody that they hired. And not only might the city be responsible for future landslides, but if we don't really know how these hills are going to perform, they may actually be throwing it all back into Gary and Marin's backyard again. So the adjacent condominiums or the adjacent homeowners associations might be responsible in the future, because as could be seen by what is actually happening as we speak, we don't really know how that hill is going to respond. And this developer is doing the best they can deliberately to hide that information from us. So it's really hard to be trustworthy. We are trying to get to yes, but that doesn't mean we're fools.
Thank you, Philip. Gary, then Alicia.
Okay, so I was one of the people that was, Mary and I were evacuated out of Seacliff with the recent, potential landslide above Seacliff, and we were gone for 30 days. And the good news is we're back. One of the questions I have, though, is part of the ongoing mitigation of this. We put down, 20,000 square yards of tarp up there to keep the water off the hillside. So the question I have for the developer, are you tuned into what's happening next is, say, we're putting monitors in the hillside to take a look at what's going to happen in the hillside. And out of that, get recommendations from engineering to actually say, what do we need to do for mitigation? So somehow it seemed like you've got to be tuned into that work to say what impact that may have over on your development. That was one. A couple other questions. Somebody mentioned around what's the real height that people are going to see. The people on the west side, for example, of Seacliff. What we've done in the past worked very well is do story polls to say, here's what the real height is. And to the point that Phil, I think, brought up was, you mentioned about 35 feet or 38 feet. What's the real height going to be? Because once you put the fill in, it's not 38 or 35 feet from where that is. So what's it really going to be, so people can, you can think about it, but you got to really see it to know what that is. That will be important. Be interested to know, when you say 10% affordable, can you talk a little bit about what you expect, what's the expectation for the average cost for just the regular units within, but also for the, when you say affordable, what does that really mean? Can you give us a dollar figure? What do you think what that turns out to be? Couple other questions. Emergency egress, certainly a concern. We had a fire over near Miller Knox Park a while ago, and we had, if it's gotten worse, we'd have to go back on the back side. Is this being considered an EIR around, what's the impact as we keep getting larger number of people in this particular area with limited egress? What's the impact? Lastly, last question I had, I'm wondering, retaining walls. We actually had some retaining walls in Seacliff, but one of the things that happened was there's a significant amount of cracking. One of the issues we have is, since it was over 10 years ago when these were built, there's nothing we can go back against with the original contractor to actually to fit that. So 10 years is a key thing, and saying, okay, over time, this starts to degrade. There's going to be no responsible from your developer to actually fixing that. Last question, solar. I didn't hear anything about solar. Are you guys planning on solar throughout these units? So would like to hear that. So that's a list of questions, and I'm over my time limit.
Yeah.
Charging
Yeah.
stations.
Oh, and I'm going to cut back in one more thing. On EV for parking, the rule for the city, it's in the municipal code, is that you have 2 or 10% of parking spaces have to be EV capable now. They have to be EV available. You have 2 for 212 parking places. The parking places in a multifamily development area, even if they're townhomes and they're separate garages, those parking places are considered part of the program, because there's a move in California that by 2035, we only have electric vehicles available. And having only 2 electric vehicle charging stations now is shy of about 19 from what's required by the city's municipal code. And the other thing is all parking spaces have to be EV capable. In other words, the wiring has to already be there. You just have to hook up the specialty stuff for that. So there might be a misunderstanding from what the code is, but that's how I read it. And I provided that to the city staff and planning so that they understand too. I'm going to go back. I'm going to have Leisha and Dave, and then we're going to allow some answers. And then others like Norma and Marcy, we'll let you get back in after we get responses back from Kelly and Melissa. Okay, so Alicia.
Hi, so I'm going to outline a few things. Really, in my opinion, there's serious issues on this project that beg the question why city staff has even let it proceed to a DRB public hearing. Some people have kind of brought this up, that it violates current Richmond's zoning ordinance and municipal code based on building heights. And it's a huge one here. Per our zoning ordinance and code, height must be measured from the adjacent natural or finished grade, whichever is lower, to the coping of a flat roof or deck. When you're determining the grade, the existing grade and the elevation of the ground at any point on a lot is determined as the existing grade, also known as the natural grade. And finally, under definitions in our zoning ordinance, existing/natural grade is defined on vacant parcels, which is what this is, before any land development activities are undertaken, as the elevation of the ground at any point on a lot, as shown on the required survey submitted in conjunction with the application. It is not determined from your infill. It's determined from the existing lot as you inherited it as a vacant lot. So the heights are nowhere near 38 feet. They're much higher than that. They're 92 feet is my understanding at the furthest north row of homes. So it is a huge significant impact. And moreover, you're only going for 10% of affordable homes, which under SB 35 means the city only has to approve 1 waiver, not the 9 that you are currently requesting. Those 9 waivers that you're requesting cumulatively impact the overall height, massing, everything about this design. And if it's already in violation of the zoning ordinance, I think it's highly premature that this has come before the public at this point in time. Your own geotechnical report, as Rod mentioned, warns that there's going to be up to 9 inches of hydrocompression. That will lead to structural failures. I don't think any homeowner should be saddled with that responsibility, because it's unclear over how many of those 30 years when that fracturing and that compression will happen and failure will be met. I and many others believe that you switched from a planned area to RM1 zoning under SB 35 to attempt to avert a proper EIR and inappropriately used the general plan EIR, which was never intended to be used for a project like this, let alone with this amount of infill. The EIR is woefully inadequate at this point in time, and once again disingenuously tries to tell the community that there are no significant impacts. Number 1, it doesn't align with your own geotechnical report. The infill will have significant impacts on our public safety, emergency vehicle access, and our ability to quickly egress over one of only 2 routes throughout this Brickyard Cove area. Per the city's staff report, you're going to be bringing in 63,000 yards of infill by grading the adjacent hillside, plus an additional 68,000 over the hill. However, it's my understanding that you should be adding 30% more to that infill due to the fluff when you have cut soil. So it's unclear if you're actually going to be bringing in up to 152,000 cubic yards of fill between the cutting of the grade and bringing it over the hill. So if you assume it's actually 88,000, I don't understand your truck trips. I think it's much greater than that. I don't understand how you can get 153 truck trips in here a day. I really don't, without queuing those trucks, which is going to add to diesel exhaust and particulates in our air. Those numbers don't make any sense. I've gone through the math with several developers and they don't think they make sense either. Another major component of our EIR is an alternative project assessment. Right now, we have presented no alternative designed by you guys, and I think that's a shame. By skirting this, you haven't allowed us to see a smaller project. So we had a local architect design something that would fit in there. It's more responsible. And everybody that I know who has seen it actually is much more open to that design than what you guys are presenting us, because we do want housing. We just want responsible and respectable housing. And I'll close with just a few minor points. I don't understand why we still have not had story poles adequately installed. Rather, the community had to develop their own designs to demonstrate the significant impact that your proposed project will have on long-term owners and residents of Brickyard Landing and Seacliff. While views are not protected by law, your proposed project would most certainly devalue the properties values of many owners. What recourse would you provide them? Parking is still a serious issue. If you can't provide adequate parking on the site, that is not the community's problems, but you're trying to make it ours. And it should not create a new security threat in the community across the street, which is a gated lot intended to protect the boats and the businesses over there. And lastly, Brickyard Code Road is still private. If the city and developers cannot collaborate respectfully with the community, then we will not grant use of our road. That we will make very clear, and we will not grant it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. And I'll comment that, Melissa, I thought I heard you say that there'll be a dedication of Brickyard Cove Road as part of the program to the city.
Is that a question for me to answer right now?
Yes. I think I heard you say that.
So I've asked the city to provide me an update on the status of the dedication, and I have not received any. I know they were talking about potentially accepting it as is right now, but like I said, I don't have an update. And I know there was some coordination that needed to occur, understanding that Terminal 1 will be using the road as well. So at this point, I do not have an update from the city, but I would be interested in one as well.
Okay, because as Alicia mentioned, it's a privately owned road. Actually, the sewer infrastructure system, even the storm drainage, is all privately owned and maintained. The city has never adopted it. I'm going to go to Dave Bleckinger, and then I'm going to give Urban Republic.
Yeah, I want to ask you a question.
And Bonnie wants one more question too. Dave, you're first.
Thanks, Rod. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Thanks for taking my questions and listening to me. First of all, I'll surprise you and give a couple compliments. So first of all, I actually like your new colors better than what you presented last time. So that's a good change. I would say keep going on that. I know the extremely muted color palette was recommended by the DRB, and I think what you've got now still kind of is improvement. So good. Second, I'd like you changing the perimeter trees and confirm you will limit them to no taller than the height of the buildings. That's an improvement. For anybody that doesn't know, my property borders their property. I'm at 101 Seaview Court. I do have some concerns and comments about that and questions. I guess one final comment. They have offered a review of the model as a substitute for story poles tomorrow. We've scheduled that for afternoon. So that's helpful assessing this. So on the original model, however, and our biggest concern is that the height next to our property, as others have noted, is not just 38 feet, it's 38 feet plus a bunch of fill. And right next to our property borders where the natural slope comes up at the side, but then on top of that maximum height of the land existing, they're adding at least 20 to 30 feet on top of that and covering the entire retaining wall there. And so they've represented it, they're not going to affect the views, but what we saw in the original plan, and they've now said that they've lowered it by about 3 feet, But what we saw in that plan is that all the views from our first floor and from our yard would be blocked in the direction of the development by the trees and the buildings. And we'd like, as Lisa noted, to apply the building heights to the natural slope and limit those so that our views are not impacted as much. The developer has stated that if they came down, that they would number of units, but I believe that they could revise the slope of their development and be a little bit less impactful to their neighbors and still get the same number of units. So that's my real comment and question is, can they lower those properties? And I've forgotten the numbers of the buildings, but I think it's 13 and 15 that are closest to mine and downhill of mine that would really be taking out 3/4 of our view. All right, that's all I got. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dave. I'm gonna give Urban Republic some time to respond. Oh, Bonnie, you had one more question?
I have just one more question, and the question I have is, I'm not understanding, are you the developer? Are you going to sell these units? Are they going to be condos? How is the structure going to go? After you develop this, are you going to maintain yourself as managers of these rentals? How exactly is, what's happening in that area?
Okay, I'm turning it back over to Melissa for a moment, then we'll go back to the public after.
Okay,
Thank you.
sorry, let's see.
'Cause
Okay,
so-
so
Could you answer that question quick?
yeah, I can start with that one. So sure, we originally went into this project thinking that this would be a rental product. A lot of things have taken place, including really high construction costs, feedback from the community, etc. So right now we are pursuing doing a for sale product. These products would be mapped as condos. So each building is on its own lot, but not each individual unit. So we're proceeding for sale. We're looking to get a development partner on board with us as well that would help us sell these. But yes, we do envision for sale at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'll try to tackle the fill. So unfortunately, I did not include all of my consultants on this call. I do have them available for our next design review board hearing, and that does include our geotechnical engineer, because I know there's been a lot that's come about regarding landslides. So I have spoken with them, and I know that they've done a lot of work on site. They've had geologists out there, and that was used to compile our geotechnical report, which is thorough. We work with this group Cornerstone on all of our development projects. They're very experienced in this field, and they do not have concerns at this point regarding landslides on our site in particular. They do have lots of recommendations regarding when we do start construction, being on site to sort of monitor the soil that's brought on and make recommendations at that time. But I don't think anything was intentionally left out. I will follow up on that slope stability appendix, but I do plan on having them available to answer questions at the DRB. But I can't get into really any of the logistics at this point. But like I said, they're a well-known company that we do all of our projects work, and we really trust their recommendations in the report, which has also been reviewed by the city engineer and approved. The import, so like I mentioned, I don't really think there's much else we can do regarding the amount of import that is required for us to get the amount of units that we need to really make this project feasible. So the numbers are high, but I've been assured by our construction team that, you know, that's kind of what comes along with a hillside project. We do have several project conditions and requirements that we do have to do to comply, I guess, with our conditions of approval and our environmental document related to the import. But at this point, I think we've really done all we can in terms of the amount. We are comfortable with that number. I know the word fluff has been brought up a lot, and I've asked myself. We don't think that is really a potential at this point. It could be a little bit less than we're doing. I guess we sort of bring soil on as needed. It costs us money to bring on the soil, so really it is in our best interest to not bring in as much, as we're saying either. So, that's just something to keep in mind. The hillside development ordinance, I heard that brought up as well. We've been working with the city closely for over a year now, and it's our understanding that we meet all of the city requirements, the zoning ordinance. I can definitely ask them about that, but this is the first that I've heard about it. And, like I said, I think the city has advanced our project to DRB because we have satisfied all of their requirements. Should I just keep going through my list?
Yes,
The adjacent residences. So we've done several sections across the project site. So depending on where you are on the site, sometimes our project maybe sits higher, sometimes it sits lower. We decided not to do story poles because it might be a little bit misleading. The height of the pole does not take into account the soil, the proposed grade. So we do have a pretty extensive model that we've done, and it's available for anyone that wants us to walk it through with them. We can hop into any adjacent window. We can go to any level on the site. So the goal was really for anyone that lives adjacent to the project, we could give you an accurate depiction of what the project would look like, whether it's from the first floor or second floor or third floor of the unit. So as Mr. Bleckinger mentioned, we do have a call with him tomorrow. We're going to walk him through the model with our architect. So if there are any other people that are interested in that, we are certainly available, Kelly and myself, to set up these meetings and walk you through our model. Let's see. I heard lack of transparency. I guess politely disagree. I think we've been transparent and honest throughout the whole process. We've always made ourselves available to answer any questions. Maybe we could do a better job with outreach, but we're here again today. I don't think it's a requirement, but we do want to, make sure that we are, showing you the latest development proposal and hearing all your concerns. We're doing our best to answer all of them and address them. But like I said, there's only a certain amount we can do specifically related to the import. Unfortunately, that's the only way we can get the project to work. The environmental document that has been vetted by both the city, and they've hired a third-party peer review. Our attorney as well, we all agree that the process using the environmental checklist is appropriate for this project and doesn't warrant an EIR. It addresses items like emergency egress, any conditions related to, I mentioned dust control or noise of equipment. We think it adequately addresses all of that. I believe they did include a project alternative in that last version. Because I think that was, and it might be the one that was prepared by your side. But I believe there was an alternative analyzed in that document as well. But like I mentioned, it has been reviewed numerous times by the city and their third-party review, and it has been deemed complete. The state law that we're moving forward with, I believe it's different than SB 35. I think this one is specifically called state density bonus law. So we are available to use unlimited amount of waivers. So I believe we comply under that law, utilizing, I think it was 7 waivers for any deviations to the RM1 zoning district. We are providing solar panels on the buildings. We're complying with any city or state building code. So I do believe for all new developments, they have to have solar panels. Regarding EV, all of the garages will be EV capable, which I think is also what's required in the code, or EV ready. So, you know, any buyer, they would have access to EV within their garages as well. Let's see. I was trying to figure out how much maybe these units would go for. We don't know at this point. There's so many factors, and you know, assuming the project got constructed, who knows where costs, you know, interest rates would be. So I don't have an answer to that. The 10% affordability, it's based upon, I believe, the state's housing requirements. So the 10% would be affordable to moderate income households. And I think they established how to sort of calculate that selling price. AC units, I know there was concerns about the location of any of the exterior AC compressors. So we're looking to do wall units inside the building. So we didn't just scrap air conditioning units altogether. We're still pursuing those, but something on a smaller, more compact basis. I think I covered everything. I would just like to say again, Kelly and myself are always available to answer any additional questions and walk you through the model. If there's still concerns about the geotechnical report, I'm more than happy to go back to our geotechnical engineer and get some more feedback or input from them as well.
I had a couple
Okay,
things
thank you,
for-
Melissa. Kelly, you want to say something? Or?
Sure, if I can just add, I think Melissa covered everything very well, but I do want to agree with Republic not being transparent.
Yeah.
There's always.
Kelly, you've got to get closer to your microphone or use a different
Excuse me.
way.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry if you get a close up on my face, but I got to get close to the microphone. You know, I think from a transparency standpoint, that's part of what I'm supposed to do. And, you know, there's always more people to meet with, but we've been working on this for a year plus, and we've met with the track. We've met with East Bay Park Regional District. We've met with the Richmond Boardwalk. We've met with the Boardwalk Yacht Club. We've met with the Waterline homeowners, Seacliff homeowners, Homeowner Association number 1, Homeowner Association number 2. Obviously you folks, individual neighbors, the Chamber of Commerce, the Council of Business and Industries, and anybody who's called, we've made ourselves available. Like I say, there's always room for improvement, but there is nothing that we have intentionally hid. Your city staff has been extremely conservative and very careful before they release anything, that it's reviewed and peer reviewed. And, you know, to our frustration at times to get this project moving along, but they've been very cautious also. And I really appreciate your comments, because we can take these and look at them and make sure, like we think we are, that we're in full conformance with all the city ordinances. But I just did want to let you know that we feel we are available to reach out, like Melissa said, and sketch drawings available, like she said, and we'll continue to meet with you. And we're not, you know, an example of that is meeting with you at this meeting. I mean, quite frankly, we knew it probably wasn't going to be a super pleasant meeting, but we're here to hear your comments and do the best we can to address as many as we can. And again, show you what we can and can't do. And again, thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. I've been asked to bring up on the screen some renderings that I have. Can people see that?
No.
You have to share a screen.
Not yet.
Okay. Is that visible now?
Got it.
Yes.
So that is one of multiple renderings that one of our community members provided. And I'll use my little mouse. This is where Jane lives, up in this area. She won't be impacted, but these people down here, they're definitely, and these will lose a lot of their cross view. The people on the lower building will essentially be shadowed by your project
All the time.
from the south. And so that's why my comment was, I don't think your architectural rendering matches up to what's really happening. Let me see if I can get one more and just. Here's another one. So you can see how these buildings align with an aerial view between your project and the neighboring projects. I'll do one more, and then I'm going to open this back up to other members of the public. Okay, that was the same as before. Okay. One more. Okay. All right, anyhow. Okay, stop the share. Okay, so I'm going to go bring this back up to general public. Marcia Miller, get off mute first thing.
You have to get off mute.
Okay, while you figure that, I'll let Norma Wallace get in. I think she knows how to get off mute faster. Norma, we'll take you first.
Muchas gracias, señor. Kan akrakat Norma Wallace, exuyakma ro tekne wichin awashde uyakish, kanak chochenyo oloni. So I think y'all grasped the nugget there. I could write pages of questions and comments, but my overall reaction, I guess, can be summarized in saying that, hey, my closest cousins were born and raised in San Jose. I was born and raised in San Francisco. I love Point Richmond because it's a little bit like a neighborhood in San Francisco. It's nothing like San Jose. In Richmond, on hillsides that are attractive, people use switchbacks to climb the hill. That forestalls any number of issues, including traffic regulation and emergency evacuation, where coming to a T and confronting your neighbor head on with both of you wanting to turn downhill in what will be a waterfall effect in water or mud or cars. It's not San Jose. All credit to San Jose, but this is a really unique environment. It's an island. And I didn't see anything in the report that I read addressing climate change, anticipated sea level rise, but that's not why I'm here. I'm not a scientist. I am curious why the standard is a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 2.5 bath, 2-car unit. That's clearly excluding many people. That's not family oriented. That's not singles oriented. Close friends I had in their 20s in San Francisco were perfectly fine in studio condos before they married. Not 1-bedrooms, studios. We all lived in studios. That's an entry level. This is not entry level. So it's an exclusive neighborhood with no street parking, with lots of private parking. The proposal includes a suggestion that it's car share friendly, bike friendly, but with 2-car garages in every unit, I don't see how that's promoting car share. Another main point, I tried to do the math, and for the soil importing, the number of trips per hour, per days in the period seemed like you'd need 1 truck every 5 minutes. Even if the roads could handle it, I don't understand how a truck could offload, dump, and get out of the way for the next truck in 5 minutes. I mean, I don't think that's reasonable. So I'm not sure how the 4 to 6 month period, that math doesn't make sense to me. As a native plant person, I don't see why anything but native plants would be spec'd. I don't understand why irrigation would be included at all. There's a lot of time and money spent to where are we going to put stormwater and where are we going to shove it off to? Hey, how about rain catchment? And then use it in this when you need it. But I don't see why there should be any irrigation allowed in this at all. The park, where there's a suggestion that maybe they could buy off some of their requirements by paying for plants in the park doesn't get irrigated. It's native plants. Hydro seed was specified. That's not a plant species. I think, well, I just want to state native grasses sequester carbon really well because they shoot very deep roots. I disagree with removing any of the native oaks at all. And I guess my final question, my actual question, and I have another, like a list of them, but how many of the colleagues of the people who designed this walked over, saw the design and said, I can't wait. Tell me when those are for sale. I want to move there.
Okay,
That would be.
Norma, we got to move.
That's it.
Marcia Miller.
Yes, thank you. I've really appreciated all of the comments of other people. And now I would like to bring it to a very heartfelt, personal point of view. In the drawing that you put up there, Rod, I live at the end unit of the B building, 1200 in Brickyard Landing. When I purchased my home in 1999, I paid a premium. I think I paid the highest price ever for the lower 4 buildings because I had a view. Now I understand that's not protected, but I had light, airy balcony and privacy. So I was willing to stretch my budget and bite the bullet and buy. I have loved living there. I have seen mock-up drawings similar to the one that was shown by Rod from the 4 end units, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and 1st floor of that building. Our views are totally blocked. I will be looking at a wall. I'll be looking at all of my light is taken away. My privacy on my deck is taken away. And that's not just from the deck, it's from the solarium and the kitchen as well. It really affects us. And I'm not even talking about the hundreds of thousands of dollars that I will lose in value in my unit. and I haven't heard any kind of compensation. I'm also extremely concerned about the soil and the impact. If we have slippage, if we have any kind of problem, it could affect the walls between, and it could seep down into our garages, into our buildings. It just seems very that the local people and their point of view was not considered. I would like, and I request this of the developers, that in the future meetings of the Planning Commission and the City Council, that there be a drawing presented showing the point of view from the existing condos in Brickyard Landing and how they will be affected, just to really put a personal face to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll go to Kim Duesenberg. Can you go off mute, Kim?
Hi, my name is Kim. I just wanted to correct one previous statement that the city has taken ownership of the sewage system that's under Brickyard Cove Road. That's my
Okay.
only point. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next, Gary Herbert.
Just a quick question. Melissa, you answered a number of the questions I had. The one thing I would say is around solar, et cetera. And I do think, granted, there's drawings. Story polls really do help people understand what that impact is. And that might be easy to do, but it makes it very clear. And that drawing that Rod showed a few minutes ago helps, but I think the story polls would help. The other thing to say to Kelly, it's very important, and we only moved here like 9 years ago, I guess. But it's very important when you look at a community you're going to go into a development that you really do understand what the different pieces are within that structure of that. And the neighborhood councils in Richmond are a very big deal of what happens in town. So you may be working through the city, that's fair. But this meeting was great because we got to the neighborhood council, but it was very late. But it's because I don't think you really understood the total culture of the city. And I think that's really important when you think about where you're going in and how you're going to develop. So that would be my point. The last one I would make is, I think it is extremely important. We're going to go through adding monitors on the hillside above Seacliff to figure out what the mitigation, any long-term mitigation for a landslide over there would be. You guys really need to be tuned into that. It's not engineers. The city's doing it along with the HOA. Well, maybe one last question. Did you actually talk with the HOA management before this meeting?
Melissa, you can answer that, or Kelly.
Which HOA management?
It'd be Rick Willis is the president of the HOA. I can send you this email. But he's the key one who's actually working as responsible from us for our HOA as for the monitoring of the hillside, and then what the long-term mitigation is. And you guys really need to know what are the results of that. We don't expect the results of that for another month or two. But I think that it's going to be important that we'll certainly work with the city, but that you guys really need to understand what those engineers are saying, because that's the kind of stuff we're going to be doing, and it would definitely have some potential impact on what you're doing on the hillside in this development.
That's great. Thank you very much. I'd be very, very thankful if you sent that to me, and I'll reach out. Thank you.
Okay, we'll do. Thanks. I'll send you on a
Thanks.
chart.
Thanks, Gary. I'll go to Robert, then Amy. Mr. Kish.
Thank you very much. I had two questions. I understand that solar will be installed. Where will it be installed? Will it be on top of the 38 feet of the residential units? Will it be on the ground? Where and how will it? What will it face? My second question is, I do understand that you are revising your tree palette so that no tree grows above the level of the buildings. Your prior tree palette had trees which grew up as much as 70 feet with a 25 to 80 foot breadth. So I'd like to know where I can get the revised tree palette. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. And I'll note that the solar zone is shown on all the architectural drawings of the roof plans. They're pretty much in the middle of every building. And what I read in the staff report, they were going to solar water heaters, not electric solar. But anyhow, I'll go on to Amy Hendershot.
Thank you. There's a lot of requests for story poles, and I agree. I would like to see story poles that include the additional height of the added land, along with the height of the building, along with the additional height that the solar panels are going to provide, which probably I'm guessing are going to exceed that 35 feet on top of the however many feet of land being added. And then I don't really have questions for the developers. I would say to our community that, we're looking at an overwhelming heights that give us loss of privacy. We're going to have not only the noise from the construction for 2 years and the dust and the commotion that really is going to bother those of us who work from home. I guess I'll have to go rent an office. Are you going to compensate me for that? And then the ongoing noise from air conditioners that we don't have, but we'll have to hear yours. All of these issues are huge. And I think we as a group need to be relevant and make sure that whatever happens next door to us, if Moms for Homes can be relevant, then we can be relevant. And like somebody else said in the past, it doesn't have to be this design. I get it. I'm a capitalist. I understand you need to make money for a development, but you don't need to collapse our hillside. You don't need to cause water running onto our property by having an amazingly high structure put down, with the additional land and everything. I think all of us, we need to remain relevant and make sure that we're not subject to the rape and pillage of this developer. That's it.
Thank you. Marcia, I still see you still have your hand up. Okay, never mind. Okay, I'm going to give this back to the developer. If there are any responses to the general public's comments.
Sure. So I'll address the story pole comment again. We decided that we did not want to pursue story poles, but instead we put a lot of time and effort into an actual model. It does look, I would say, a little bit similar to the designs that were pulled up on the screen, but I don't have the exact model. I do have a photo simulation that I could share. But like I said, and Kelly and I are available to meet. We could, pull up this model with our architect and we could give you a better understanding of what the development would look like from various points on the adjacent properties. I think the solar plans, it's probably a placeholder for now until we actually move forward and get a solar designer on board. I don't believe it would actually impact the top of the building, the 38 feet, because that goes to, the top of the roof pitch, and the solar panels kind of sit on the sides of the roofs. Tree plans, that palette is all available on the city's website. I think they posted our latest plan set. I mentioned we are pursuing air conditioning units that only require sort of the interior wall mounted ones. So we don't plan on doing any exterior condensers at this point. I think I've answered all the questions. I hear there's still concerns about the import and the amount of time for the construction.
Okay, we've got a couple more hands raised. Mira Salman.
Thank you. I just wanted to request that she does put the picture up on the screen so we can see it, like right now.
I can run through a quick model.
Okay.
It does show, let's see, it shows a little bit of the adjacent properties, so I can sort of fast forward to that. And then we're able to do more comprehensive walkthrough I'll just sort of speed this up a little bit. So this is sort of running through our project.
If you go too fast, I can't comprehend it. I wouldn't.
Okay,
have time to
this was
actually
just,
see it.
I
Yeah.
was trying to get through to the views that we have taken from the adjacent properties, but maybe this is a good point. I'll just let it run from here.
It's only the ones, the upper ones. Hey, Melissa, can you
Yes.
bring that back to the playground? There's a comment I've noted
Sure, okay.
to the city. That playground is very close to the main thoroughfare of the exit for this property. And I'm
Okay,
just worried about little kids jumping that fence and jumping into the middle of the road, and no, we don't need those extra bedrooms, but I'm concerned that that might be better step back from right next to the major road in and out of this property.
okay, I'll make a note of that for our landscape architect. We can provide more detail on that enclosure that they're proposing. And maybe the opening is on a different side. Maybe, I don't know if it's facing the street right now. Okay, so now I'll just kind of let it run. And so you can kind of see where those black kind of lines on the windows of Brickyard Landing, that's where we're able to actually jump in the windows and we can take views from out of all of those windows. Same with these units.
What does it mean, jump in the windows? What do you mean you can?
Sorry. So we can actually sort of, oh, like we just kind of did right there. So we're able to sort of place almost like an eye level view. So if you were standing in this window, you would have sort of a depiction of what that new view would look like.
Why don't you show us from the 1200 building?
So I don't have, that's in a different model. This is a video that our architect prepared that I can run on my computer, but I don't have that program. I don't know how to use it. So that's why we offered we could do separate calls where we have the sort of more accurate capability with that model to actually show sort of more accurate views. That's not just kind of this video that they've sort of excerpted for me.
How do we sign up for that?
Just leave your name in the message and I'll write it down. Kelly and I can reach out to you.
Okay, it kind of looks like there's lawns, and your geotechnical engineer said do xeriscape and limit irrigation because that's what's going to cause your subsidence of the hillside and hydrocompression. You got to keep the water from ever getting in there, and purposely irrigating is the wrong way to go. Robert Kish has had his hand up for a while.
So I'll just kind of comment to that as well. I know our geotechnical engineer, they have to review all of the construction drawings and they have to provide a letter to the city that confirms that all of our construction drawings meet the recommendations of the report. So if there's anything that we're proposing that does not match that, we would have to address that before the city would issue any permits.
Okay, Robert Kish.
Hey, Rod, it's Ida.
Hi, Ida.
Hi. So I have a couple of things that I want to say. First of all, there was conversation during this meeting about a lack of transparency and trust between the community and the developer. And I'm sitting here listening to this and all I'm hearing is we're not putting up story poles. We have this other option for you. In my mind, the reason you're not putting up story poles is because you don't want the community in general to see how high this is going to be. Put up the story poles. Don't require us to make an appointment to meet with you that will, by definition, limit the number of people who will be able to see the true height of this. That's number one. Number two, I've not heard any response from the developer regarding the baseline, and I apologize for not using the correct technology, the technical terms, but I'm not hearing any discussion of the baseline of where the building is going to start. I'm hearing some people in the community say that that 36 or that 38 feet has to start from where the ground is now, not an additional 20 or 30 or 40 feet built up. And I'm not hearing any discussion of the developer saying why they feel they have the right to put in all the soil. And finally, I want to say that Brickyard Landing is a community, not exclusively, but to a large extent, of an elderly population. We have no air conditioning. We have no air filtration systems. So the entire time that you guys are going to be dumping soil there, no one's going to be able to open their windows or walk outside. And I would like a comment from the developer specifically addressing, if nothing else, why they're not going to put up story poles and why they believe that they have a right to dump 20, 30, whatever the hell it is going to be feet, why they believe that their baseline building starts 30 feet above where the land is now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ida. Vera Salmon, take it off mute.
I just wanted to thank you for showing the thing, and I want to second what Ida said, that I think it's really not fair to just really make something easily accessible. And I wish I could hear from Melissa, and I'm sorry I forget the other person's name, just a little bit more like understanding or care about the impact, both on the health from the stuff that's going to get dumped and the impact of how it affects how we live, like the person from the B building said. I just wish there was more care about that, and then more response as opposed to just not financially feasible, because I think there's other things to value alongside money. So I just like to say that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Philip Rosenthal. Get off mute. You're on mute, Philip.
He's not done.
Sorry about that. I just wanted to point out, obviously, we don't want to just continue to beat the same horse. In the same time that the developers are telling us how transparent they are and how they're bending over backwards to make it easy for us to understand what they're doing, Melissa said that they chose not to do story polls. So I'm just going to reiterate, maybe you should choose to do story polls, because if you're being sincere and this is what you're representing it, the story polls are going to tell the story, and they are standard in the industry. So please reconsider deciding not to do it.
Okay, I want to wrap it around. We don't have any more raised hands as far as I can tell. Wait a minute. Okay, I'm sorry. Alicia, you have a lighter hand, so it's harder to see sometimes. Alicia Johnson, sorry.
Hi, I just wanted to show, I'm going to share something. These are images that, let me know, can people see those?
Yes.
Yep. Yes.
So this is what some people generated because we didn't have anything from the city or the developer. And the two views I'm first going to show you are from the ground level in the front of building B, which is what one of the speakers spoke to earlier, where she lives. And so from what they designed, this is their view. Here's another viewpoint. And then this bottom view is from a location between the back of the B building and the front of the next higher D building. So where you get a lot of this nice open space and views between the buildings and the way it was set in Brickyard Landing, we don't have any of that in the proposed development. And there is going to be concern about these huge concrete walls as long as there is hydro compression going on in there with 50 feet of fill, there's significant concern about what would happen, not just to the stability of these buildings, but also the stability of these retaining walls. So people wanted me to show these images so that people had these perspective. And I think in addition to story poles, storyboards are also, a picture's worth 1,000 words. And if you have pictures like this from critical vantage points from within Brickyard Landing and within Seacliff on both sides of it, not just looking at it from Brickyard Cove Road, but actually the people who've lived here for several years and have invested in this community, they deserve to have these legitimate viewpoints published and for the whole community to see them on site. So I would again reiterate what everybody else is saying, and please show these for the community on the building site location for everybody to see in a transparent manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. Mike Carnell or Canelli? I'm sorry, Mike Carnell. Your hand is raised.
Yes. Yes, I just, you've shown some of the images. Those images come from a model that I have. And I could, and I just want to say, if you want to look at the image from a view from any building in Brickyard Landing, at least, you can do that, and I can show it to you. So one thing I will say about the fill, we shouldn't exaggerate. There isn't 50 feet of fill, but there is something like the maximum will be 35 feet or so that I can see. And so a story pole for one of these buildings, the highest building is going to be 70 feet high. That's the highest, that's as high as the chimney that we tore down. So one reason they don't want story poles is because they'd have to put up guy wires to hold them up. So anyway, I just want to put my name on those pictures that you've seen, and if there's other views that you might want to see, I could produce those as well.
And why don't you put in chat how to reach you?
Okay. Sure.
Okay. Thank you. Alan Solomon. Your hand is raised, Alan. But you're on mute.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah, I just want to say I live on the top floor of Pinnacle, so I'll probably have less effect, if any, of the views. So, but the word transparency has been thrown around so much, and I'll tell people I'm a psychologist, and to me, I have seen no transparency about this project from the beginning. I mean, basically, and I don't know how most people experience this. I heard about this in October. There was a meeting, and suddenly this was presented almost as a fait accompli that this is what was going to be done. And I heard nothing about meetings with homeowners association, including our own, where models were presented or anything. So it was just kind of put out like that. And I think, obviously, I'm talking to the developers here, if you're hoping to have any kind of alliance with your neighbors, which is only to your long-term benefit, I think you really need to change your approach radically. This is just not acceptable. We're talking about health effects, economic effects, and just quality of life effects for hundreds and hundreds of people in the surrounding communities. And I just find what's happening right now is just outrageous. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
You see me? I don't have a hand to put up on my computer.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that. This is Jeff Vines. I live in Brickyard Landing. I know the community is aware that I've been involved in this for a while, and also with Melissa and Kelly early on. As an example of how much they are trying to, I guess, push things through, you just think about the challenge we had in trying to get the city to delay the presentation to the design review board. because the developer wanted. And he knew, because I'm sure he was advised by the city, that there was a massive opposition to that being jammed on the community. And so, you know, here you are, you took the opportunity to come in front of the Point Richmond Neighborhood Council, and we do appreciate that. But there's been comments, and many of the points I would make have been made. The fill is absolutely outrageous. Those views from Brickyard Landing are real impacts. And as Mike said, he can fly you over and look from anywhere for folks that want to do that. But you notice all the pictures that were presented by the developer, none of them really had a perspective from Brickyard Landing because it's embarrassing. And then the fill, the thousands of trucks coming, and they also turn around and go back. Nobody's talked about the emergency impact. Lisa's led a charge with the city to deal with it on a general basis. But while these trucks are flying in here, we have one single event, and this community could be stuck, could be unable to get out of here because a truck or a train or an overturn, the tunnels occasionally get shut down. It's a real problem. And the fact that the city is not requiring an environmental impact report to cover this project is, you know, beyond outrageous. I think it's highly illegal and subject to serious fight from the community, because there's a Bay Area Air Quality Control Management District requirement that stipulates the movement of anything over 10,000 cubic yards of fill, and the combined here will be about 170,000 cubic yards, is significant. And that means that it requires an environmental impact report. And they would have to address everything, all the health points that have been discussed, and the impact of the movement, the impact on the adjacent properties, and importantly, look at alternatives. The fact that no alternatives have been shown, I mean, the developer says, well, this is what we need in order to build here. Build something a little smaller so that you only put in a couple of feet to cover the lower level. You know, as a minimum, maybe follow the natural slope, but you can do a lot of cutting and using that fill. You know, maybe it's not big enough considering all of the issues with grade and slope and everything that's happening at Seacliff. Put in something less than 94 units. And, you know, if you make them really nice, you'll do very well. Anyway, I'm not hearing anything. This has been the same story since last August, September. And, you know, they knocked off 3 feet, big deal. I mean, you saw what the impact is. Anyway, I hope the community sticks together and continues to fight. We want to see a nice development here, but it just doesn't warrant that kind of an adjustment of the way this property looks. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Alan, did you want to be heard one more time, or were Alan Solomon, your hand is raised? No, okay, you took it down. Okay, I think we wrapped. Kelly and Melissa, any last comments? And this has been recorded, so we could possibly make it available to you if you want it. So you didn't have to write all your notes down before the meeting or during the meeting. I'd like you to take it. I'd like to see the story polls, and I'd like you to have a really careful look at that geotechnical report, because it's pretty scary. And the geotechnical people did say that they'd want to put monitoring into the hill. But I'll tell you, if I'm in construction and if I knew I was going to build something that was going to drop 9 inches, I wouldn't be building. It's just, you can't do that.
And the last thing too, I think for our committee, we need to stay active with the community and be available to let them know what's going on. And Rod, you had an email that you set up for people to email. Did you put that on chat for people to be able to
I can do that.
access us.
Yeah,
So the public can talk with the land use people. There is a special email and Rod's gonna put it up on the screen for people. And I will say one last thing about this project is there isn't one private residence and there isn't one other big project that has not had to put up story poles. And the reality is you need to put up story poles and you should be required to do so. So Rod's putting that up for you guys. And when is our next meeting to let people know?
well, the next meeting will be the design review board meeting. That is open to the public. And that is on February 8th.
On February 8th. And we would ask the developer to please make sure that when you do decide what you're gonna show up and come to the community, that proper notice is given. Because many people, when you were trying to slide into the city design review, did not get proper notice of it at all. So proper notice is required.
Okay. Thank you, folks. We're all done?
Yep.
Okay. That
Thank you,
concludes.
Rod.
You're
Thank you for
welcome.
your time.
Okay, thank you for coming to this meeting. I know it was kind of bloody, but we want you to hear our comments because we want to be constructive criticism also. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.